Today I've got a top 10 list of my favorite 90s science fiction movies on physical media. So let's rock this. Hi everyone, how you doing? Welcome back. I'm Fuzz. So this is something I've had brewing in the works for a while because I've been wanting to return to some kind of 90s themed list video for some time now. But I was a little concerned this list might be a little too repetitive or redundant to longtime viewers of the channel, because there are quite a few titles on this list today that have popped up previously in the context of other list videos I've done. But I'm also aware there are new viewers, new subscribers to the channel all the time who may not have seen those older videos. And it's been almost a year since I've done any kind of 90s themed video on this channel, so I figured I could probably get away with putting together a top 10 list of my favorite science fiction films from the 1990s on physical media. And to accommodate longtime viewers and subs as well, I've also tacked on an exceptionally large honorable mention section to the end of this list, just to give longtime viewers a little bit more to sink your teeth into beyond what will probably be a fairly predictable top 10 list for anyone who knows me, for anyone who knows my taste in movies. Okay, so let's dive right into this list here. First up, at number 10, is a 1997 film called Starship Troopers, directed by the great Paul Verhoeven. This is a great sci-fi action flick. Stars Casper Van Dien. You got Denise Richards in here. You got Dina Meyer. You got Michael Ironside in here, Jake Busey. So yeah, kind of a fun cast. Although I gotta say, did Casper Van Dien ever do anything worth a shit beyond this movie? I feel like this was his most notable role, and I know he did some other movies and starred in a lot of low-budget B movies or whatnot, but I don't remember ever really seeing him in anything else of note, right? I'm pretty sure this was his most notable role. But this is just a really fun movie that I seem to remember being a bit of a staple on cable TV in the late 90s and early 2000s. I've always loved the kind of over-the-top way in which Verhoeven embeds like social commentary and political commentary into his films. You know, he does it with a touch of humor and to where you can't help but laugh, but at the same time, he's certainly making a serious underlying point, right? There's some pretty rich subtext in his sci-fi films. So yeah, I think this has kind of become a bit of a modern sci-fi classic. And it's certainly one I used to watch all the time. Whenever I couldn't find something to watch on TV, it always seemed like I could find this one playing somewhere on cable TV or whatnot back in the late 90s and early 2000s. So yeah, just a great film all the way around. If you've never seen it, I would definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're a fan of sci-fi action. And the 4K looks great too. It's easily the best I've ever seen this film look. Yeah, solid 4K. So at number 10, Starship Troopers. Next up, for my number 9, from 1996, we have an absolute classic here, and that is Roland Emmerich's Independence Day, ID4. Yeah, I was just watching this the other night. I hadn't watched this for a couple years, and really enjoyed revisiting this. This is one I used to watch all the time. I seem to remember seeing this one in the theater when it first came out, and it was a really big deal when it first came out. The special effects at the time were pretty, I don't know if I'd go groundbreaking, but they were pretty impressive. You know, they had a certain wow factor that we all kind of responded to. And I remember seeing this in the theater and really just being blown away by, you know, all the destruction. Let's face it, no one does disaster and spectacle quite like Roland Emmerich. Am I right? I mean, that's kind of his thing. And this was like the gold standard for that, as far as I'm concerned. You know, for disaster and spectacle, this was, I think, to this day, one of the best Roland Emmerich movies ever. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this is a pretty cheesy film, right? But it's fun cheese. You can't help but have a little fun with it. You got a great cast here. Will Smith, Jeff Goldblum, Bill Pullman is the president, of course. So yeah, and Randy Quaid also in this, Judd Hirsch. So some great people in this. Yeah, I think it's just a fun movie all the way around. And this is one that I don't ever really get tired of watching. Even though I haven't seen my copy for probably a year and a half, 2 years, it is one that I find that I can rewatch quite a bit. I certainly used to rewatch it all the time in the late 90s, early 2000s. It's another one that I think was on cable TV quite a bit. So, you know, I've seen this movie so many times. As far as the 4K is concerned, it's an okay looking 4K. I would not call this a reference disc by any stretch, but it's probably about the best this film can look. And the reason I say that it's maybe not a reference disc is because some of the effects, some of the visual effects are definitely starting to show their age here. You know, you've got a lot of green screen or rear screen projection, whatever it is. And of course, the resolution of the visual effects is not quite as high as the 4K format, right? So the visual effects, the ships and whatnot, they do look a little soft. But that's just part of the deal with this, right? That's, like I said, the movie is starting to show its age. But I still think this is probably about the best you're going to get for this film on 4K. So yeah, Independence Day, a classic for my number 9. For my number 8, I've got a great 1994 sci-fi action film here starring Ray Liotta, and that is No Escape. I believe I've talked about this one on the channel before. I absolutely love this film. This is one of those ones that, another one that I think all the ones on this list are going to have a pretty high rewatch value. They certainly do for me, and this one is no exception. This is just a fun film, and I never seem to really get tired of it. Now this was put out, this is a 4K that was put out by a German company called Turbine Media, and they did a great job with it. Now we never got a 4K in the US, we only got a Blu-ray from a company called Unearthed Films. So when I found out that Turbine Media was putting this out on 4K, you know, I jumped on it. This was a day one purchase for me. And in fact, they had 3 different variants of this media book, and they all sold out within like a few days. The good news is you can still get this on 4K from Turbine Media. They have a standard edition available. You can't get these media books anymore, but you can still get the standard edition 4K in just a standard Amaray case. And I'd highly recommend it. This is an awesome movie, and the 4K is the best it's ever looked, easily. Great cast here with Ray Liotta and Lance Hendrickson and some other great people as well. It's a prison colony type film that's set in a future of 2022, I think was the year that this is set in. So at the time when this came out in 94, that was, you know, fairly futuristic, but you know, 2022 now is of course our past. The film was directed by Martin Campbell, who did a couple James Bond films. He did, I believe, GoldenEye and Casino Royale. He's done a ton of other stuff too, but this is probably my favorite Martin Campbell film out of all of them. So yeah, great film all the way around. If you've never seen No Escape, it's definitely one you got to put on your list to check out because it's a very cool film. So yeah, No Escape at number 8. Moving on to number 7, I actually have a tie here between 2 disaster films that came out in 1998, just a couple months apart from each other. You guys probably know what I'm referring to, and that is, of course, we have Armageddon and Deep Impact, right? Now, we got a 4K for Deep Impact. Of course, we do not have a 4K for Armageddon yet. This is under Disney's control, so who knows when we'll get it, if we'll get it, whatnot. Hopefully, with that new deal with Sony, maybe we'll eventually get some kind of 4K for this. But I love both of these films probably equally as much. Deep Impact came out about 2 months before Armageddon, and they were both, you know, the same story, right? An asteroid coming to Earth is going to, you know, destroy the Earth, right? They took 2 very different approaches with these films, right? This Armageddon was Michael Bay. It was a lot more bombastic and over the top, whereas Deep Impact seemed like it was a little bit more grounded, right? A little bit more realistic to the extent that something like this can be realistic. Deep Impact always just had a more kind of subdued vibe to it, you know, a mellower kind of more depressing vibe to it, I think, than Armageddon, you know? And that's the thing I love about both of these films, is that they took the same concept and they did 2 totally different things with that same concept. Of course, in Armageddon, you've got Bruce Willis, you've got Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, a lot of other great people in there as well. And then with Deep Impact, you have Robert Duvall, you got Morgan Freeman, and some other great people in here as well. So really, both of these are great movies. Both of them have really high rewatch value for me. And I've always enjoyed these ones, and whenever they're on, I love to watch them. Or nowadays, I just pop on my disc, of course. So now, a quick word about the 4K here. Of course, I can't talk much about this in 4K because we don't have a 4K of that. But this one on 4K, I think it looks pretty decent, but I do think you should keep your expectations realistic. As is often the case with some of these 90s movies, the visual effects maybe don't translate over to 4K as well as we'd like. But I still think, that aside, it's probably the best this film has ever looked. And as long as you can handle the slightly lower resolution visual effects on a 4K disc, I don't think you'll have any problem with this. So, but if you're a fan of it, you should definitely get it, right? I mean, absolutely pick this bad boy up on 4K if you're a fan of this. And with any luck, maybe we'll get a 4K of this someday. But anyway, just two awesome disaster films from 1998. So these both are tied for number 7 on my list today. And moving on to number 6, we have the 1993 Steven Spielberg classic Jurassic Park, which I have in my Jurassic World box here. Really groundbreaking, innovative special effects for the time. They did some stuff that hadn't really been done before, if I remember right. And this was a big deal when it came out in theaters. I remember seeing it in the theater. My wife was a big fan of the book. I guess she had read the book. My wife at the time, now ex-wife, she loved that book. And so she knew all about it when the movie was coming out. Of course, I didn't read the book, so I didn't know anything about the story. She told me about it, and we went and saw it in the theater, and it was just awesome, right? I mean, there was a big awe factor there when we first saw Jurassic Park in the theater. Such a well-done movie. And, I think the 4K looks okay. It's a fairly decent 4K, but, some people don't like it as much as other 4K discs out there. I'm glad to have it in 4K. This is one of those deals where, I had to have the whole collection in 4K just because that's how I roll. So I won't say too much about Jurassic Park. We all know what Jurassic Park is, don't we? Yeah, but love the film, and that's why I have it at my number 6. Okay, and now moving into the top 5. These are the big ones for me. These are the ones that I absolutely love and can watch over and over and over again and never get tired of them. Of course, I feel like every movie on this list has been kind of like that. But anyway, top 5 here. Coming in at number 5, I've mentioned this one before on this channel, Event Horizon. Such an awesome sci-fi horror movie, but still very solidly sci-fi in my book. And I'm sorry about the reflection there. I'm just a big fan of this film. You got Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill here. Sam Neill's awesome in this. He's a little bit of a loon in this, but he's awesome. And of course, Lawrence Fishburne is always great. The funny thing about this film is that when it first came out, I didn't really like it that much. I wasn't really that into it. But then this is another one that became a staple on cable TV in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it seemed like it was always on. I could always find this to watch if I was in the mood for it. So this is one that I used to watch quite a bit, and what I found is, even though I didn't really care for the movie as much when it first came out, I really warmed up to it over time, just from repeat viewings on cable TV or whatnot. So when I found out that they were putting out a 4K of this, I was blown away. I was actually surprised because I didn't think this was something that would ever get a 4K release. I figured Blu-ray was probably going to be the best we would get. And to be fair, the previous Shout Factory Blu-ray, or maybe it was Scream Factory Blu-ray that came out of this is a very good Blu-ray. If you don't have either and you just want to save a little money and get the Blu-ray, it is a very good Blu-ray, and it's sourced from a 4K scan as well. So even though it's output to Blu-ray, the Shout Factory Blu-ray was sourced from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. However, I had to have the full meal deal, right? And I do think this looks awesome on 4K. Now, this film, there's some issues with the film. There's definitely some parts in this film that are looking a little dated. The effects maybe don't hold up very well. And that's just kind of part of the charm of the film as far as I'm concerned. And you got to be prepared for that going into the 4K. Don't go into this expecting everything to look perfect, because it most definitely won't. There are some flaws in the film that reveal themselves way more on the 4K format. But there's also some great set pieces in here, some great sets. There's a lot of practical stuff in this film too that really does look good on 4K. And overall, I would say this is probably the best the film has ever looked on home media, even though some of the visual effects don't quite hold up as well. So yeah, just love this film. Awesome sci-fi horror film. If you've never seen Event Horizon, it's definitely one you got to check out. And so yeah, that's my number 5. Next up for number 4, I have another 1997 film that I've talked about quite a bit on this channel, and that is The Fifth Element. I just love this movie, right? Again, another one, yeah, I don't ever really get sick of watching. And this Studio Canal 4K just looks incredible. I have said this on the channel before. I highly recommend, if you don't own this title on 4K at all, I would highly recommend getting the Studio Canal release over the US Sony release. Now, this is a UK release, but you can still buy it from Amazon US, and it just goes through Amazon Global. But it is available through Amazon US. And you will notice a little note if you go and look on the Amazon listing. It's the one that has this cover art. This is the Studio Canal version, so just look for this cover art. The listing for this on Amazon will say there's a region compatibility issue with this, but that's only referring to the included Blu-ray. It doesn't refer to the 4K. The 4K in here is very much region-free and will play on North American players, but this is just a stunning disc. It was in my my must-own reference 4Ks video that I did. And, you know, I've talked about it quite a bit on this channel, so I won't say too much more, but just awesome film with Bruce Willis and Mila Jovovich and some other great people as well. Yeah, definitely one I would recommend picking up if you don't already have it on 4K. By the way, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, do me a favor and please consider subscribing to the channel. And also don't forget to activate that notification bell as well, so you can be alerted whenever I'm posting videos that you might be interested in. Also, don't forget to like the video as well. It really does help with the channel's visibility on YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. All right, next up for my number 3, another absolute classic here from 1990, Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall. Got a little Arnold there, Sharon Stone, Ronnie Cox, Michael Ironside, great cast. And, you know, I mentioned, like I said before, I love Paul Verhoeven's sci-fi films, and this one is my favorite of the bunch. Absolutely love this film. High rewatch value. This is one I don't seem to ever get sick of watching. And I've got the 4K steelbook here. I love this steelbook design too. You know, I love these steelbooks when they have the printed covers or whatever. You get the nice the clear printed covers with the art on the front and back. Of course, this one doesn't have as much art on the printed cover. It's mainly just the title. But yeah, I love these kind of steelbooks. They're awesome. I love it when there's a clear printed plastic slip over a steelbook like that. That's my favorite steelbook design. But this is just a fantastic movie. I don't know how much I can really say about it. And the 4K looks great as well. If you don't have it on 4K and you're a fan, you definitely got to own this on 4K because it looks awesome. And it's easily the best the film has ever looked on home media. Just a fun film all the way around. You still have that kind of slight satirical edge and that social and political underlying commentary from Paul Verhoeven. Maybe not as much as RoboCop or Starship Troopers, but it's still very much there as part of this film. So yeah, I just love it. Total Recall for my number 3. And then moving on to my number 2, another absolute classic that was groundbreaking in terms of visual effects and some of the stuff they did. 1999's The Matrix. Absolutely love this film, and it's an amazing looking 4K as well. This is another one that was on my reference 4K movies video that I did. It's one of those top titles that I think anybody who's into 4K and into this film should definitely own on 4K. Easily the best it's ever looked on this format. Easily. I mean, the detail here is off the charts in a big way. There's some great set designs here and set pieces, and everything just really shines on 4K here. Of course, a classic film with Keanu Reeves, Lawrence Fishburne, Carrie Ann Moss, and some other great people as well. Hugo Weaving, of course, as Agent Smith. And yeah, I just love this film. I can watch it repeatedly. This is the kind of film I can watch probably several times a year. That's how much I'm into The Matrix. If I can watch a film several times a year and never get sick of it, that's a bona fide classic in my book. I remember when this first came out in '99, and I went and saw it in the theater, but there was all this mystery, like, what's The Matrix? What is this? There was all this curiosity, and the ad campaign to promote the movie, I think it really piqued a lot of people's curiosity. It looked like a lot of fun, but they were like, what is this Matrix thing? Nobody knew what it was. So it was this great mystery leading up to the release of this film that everybody was excited to find out about, to learn more about. And, groundbreaking special effects, fight sequences and whatnot. They did some stuff that really hadn't been done in film before. The Wachowskis did. So yeah, I just absolutely love The Matrix, so that's my number 2. And then finally at my number 1, this of course shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who knows me, and it's Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And I got this nice little steelbook here. Again, we got the printed slip covers, the clear plastic printed slip covers, and this awesome steelbook, right? Which is great because that's probably about the only good thing about this release. I mean, the movie itself is, of course, awesome, but as many of you know, the 4K for Terminator 2 is not good, right? It's widely considered to be one of the worst 4K releases ever, just in terms of the way the restoration looks. But the good news is they're actually going to redo this. They're actually going to redo the 4K restoration of this. Apparently, a really good 4K scan exists out there of this film. It's just that the problem was the studio screwed up and used a 3D master for the 4K release rather than creating a 4K master. So that's why it looks the way it does, because as part of the 3D conversion, they go in and they scrub all the grain out, right? And so that's why it looks all waxy. But the good news is they're going to be redoing this. They're also going to be doing a 4K of Terminator 1. So hopefully that's something we will see sometime this year. Of course, this year is the 40th anniversary of Terminator. So we definitely want to see the first film get released on 4K as well. But it sounds like they're also going to put out a new 4K of Terminator 2, which, we definitely need a proper restoration for this. My hope is that when they redo this one, that they actually include the extended versions of the film on 4K as well, and not just the theatrical. That was one of the things I was kind of bummed out about with this release, aside from the fact that the 4K looked like shit. Is that they only included the extended versions on Blu-ray. They didn't put them on 4K. So hopefully when they redo this, we'll get an actual proper 4K release that has the extended versions of the film along with the theatrical, both in 4K. And of course, how much can you really say about Terminator 2? It's one of the greatest sci-fi action films ever made. Linda Hamilton was a total badass in this. Edward Furlong did a great job, and of course, Arnold, doing his thing as well. So big fan of this film. And so yeah, as far as sci-fi films from the 90s go, this is my number 1. Okay, so that wraps it up for my top 10 list. But of course, as promised, I do have an unusually large honorable mentions section here this time to share with you guys. And I'm going to try, I don't know if this is going to happen or not, because my rambling sometimes gets the best of me, but I'm going to try to breeze through these fairly quickly. First up, honorable mentions, Stargate, another Roland Emmerich film from the early 90s. When did this come out? 94 is when this came out. Great film, and yeah, I've always liked this one. Saw it in the theater when it first came out, and yeah, just love the film. Awesome film. Another great Roland Emmerich film. So yeah, Stargate. And then while we're on the topic of Roland Emmerich, I have another early 90s Emmerich sci-fi film, and that is Universal Soldier. Great looking 4K, by the way. This really surprised me. Now, I'll admit, when I first picked up this 4K, I had not actually seen this film at the time. I had never seen it. It was a first-time watch. But so I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess I didn't go into this realizing that the 4K was going to look as damn good as it actually does. This is a surprisingly good looking 4K. And if you're a fan of this film, it's the best it's ever looked. I'm sure it has to be because this really does look pretty amazing. But awesome stuff with Jean-Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, great sci-fi action flick. If you've never seen it, I would definitely recommend it. And pick up the 4K while you're at it because it really does look stunning. If you're a fan of the film, I don't think you would regret getting this in 4K at all. So yeah, just a fun film and another great Roland Emmerich film. Probably my second favorite Roland Emmerich film next to Independence Day. Really enjoy this one. So, and it's got a cheese factor. Jean-Claude Van Damme. Yeah, it's definitely got a cheese factor, but it's humorous and you can't help but kind of chuckle a little bit during a few scenes here. Classic stuff, right? Classic Jean-Claude Van Damme action right here. So yeah, Universal Soldier. Another good one from 1995 is Species. Starring Natasha Henstridge and Michael Madsen. Ben Kingsley's in this. Forrest Whitaker's in this. Even Michelle Williams is in this. Really good cast in this. And it's a fun ride. Now, this one you can actually get in 4K. I believe Scream Factory released a 4K of this. I just never got around to picking it up. Probably because I bought my Blu-ray about a month before the 4K was announced, having no idea that it was even coming. But so I wasn't in a hurry to pick up the 4K. I may still get around to doing that at some point. But yeah, fun film that you should definitely check out if you've never seen it. Species. Another honorable mention, and I guess this counts as sci-fi. I mean, it's an Invisible Man movie, and that is John Carpenter's Memoirs of the Invisible Man. So yeah, that whole Invisible Man thing, I think that that alone makes it sci-fi. This is kind of a trippy movie, though. It's hard to categorize, right? Because it's got Chevy Chase in what I think is the best role he ever did. But it's Chevy Chase playing it a little bit more serious. I mean, not totally serious. It's still, Chevy still has his kind of quirks and his demeanor, his personality, his humor style is still there, but it's just not quite as comedy driven as you would normally expect from Chevy Chase. He does play this role a little bit more straight and serious than you would usually expect from Chevy Chase. Sam Neill's also in this at his sinister best, and I think this is a severely underrated John Carpenter film. I love this film. I used to watch it all the time. Another one that has high rewatch value for me. The special effects in this, the invisibility special effects, were pretty groundbreaking at the time, I believe, and they still actually hold up really well to this day. So yeah, I just love this film, and it's one that I don't really get sick of watching. And yeah, cool story, cool, a unique take on the whole Invisible Man thing. So if you've never seen it, yeah, don't let people badmouth this one. This is actually a really good film. It gets a lot of flack from some Carpenter fans, but I think this one's actually a really good movie and would highly recommend it if you've never seen it. And then I've got another John Carpenter film here from 1996, Escape from L.A., I love this film. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's hilarious. It really is. And I know a lot of people were disappointed by this one when it first came out. And even to this day, they still don't care for it as much. But I actually really like this one quite a bit. I'm a big fan of Escape from New York, of course, but Escape from LA, they took a totally different approach with it. And I just think some people didn't get it. I saw this as more of a satire of Escape from New York than anything else. It certainly wasn't really, I don't think this was ever intended to be like a serious sequel. I think it was just John Carpenter and Kurt Russell having a little fun with the fan base. In fact, I would say John Carpenter and Kurt Russell kind of got together to fuck with the fan base on this one. I mean, it's hilarious, you know? They were just having fun with the subject matter, fun with the story, and I don't think this was ever intended to be any kind of like a serious sequel. It was meant to just be kind of a tribute, I think, to Escape from New York, but kind of a humorous tribute to the original movie. So I realize it's not for everyone, but personally, I found the film to be, like I said, hilarious and just a really fun ride all the way around. Plus, you just have an awesome cast in this movie as well. You got Steve Buscemi, you've got who else you got here? Peter Fonda, Pam Grier, Stacy Keach, Cliff Robertson. Bruce Campbell's in this. I mean, what a cast, right? So yeah, I've always loved this one, always thought it was a fun ride, and yeah, Escape from New York. The 4K looks pretty decent as well. It's not one that, you know, I wouldn't call this a reference quality disc or anything, but it certainly serves its purpose. It's decent enough, and you know, I'm glad I got it on 4K. So anyway, yeah, Escape from LA, good one. I also want to mention the 1998 film Sphere, with a great cast: Sharon Stone, Dustin Hoffman, Samuel L. Jackson in this one, Liv Schreiber. This is another one of those ones that I feel like it used to play on cable TV quite a bit in the aftermath of it being released, and I used to watch it quite a bit. And prior to picking up this Blu-ray, I hadn't seen it in quite a few years. But yeah, this is a great film, a lot of fun. You know, it's kind of a quirky film at the same time, but really a good kind of underwater sci-fi type adventure. If you like movies like The Abyss, this is one you would probably like as well. Of course, this is nowhere near as good as The Abyss, but it's still a good movie, a solid movie, and one that I'm glad I added to my collection. And you might want to check out if you've never seen it. By the way, I finally got around to picking up Contact. That's another one we have to absolutely mention. Great 90s sci-fi flick. Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Skerritt, Jake Busey's in this. A lot of other good people as well. William Fichtner. I just rewatched this film, watched the Blu-ray just like a week ago, and really had fun revisiting it. I always do. This is another one with a pretty high rewatch value. This is also one I've been saying I would love to see get a 4K release at some point. But I got to say, after watching the Blu-ray last week, you know, it had been a while since I'd seen it. It had been a few years since I'd seen it. But watching it this time with more of an eye for 4K and trying to envision what this might look like in 4K, there are quite a few visual effects that I could see maybe not translating to 4K as well. So that could be a potential problem with this one if it ever does get a 4K release. Just, you know, the visual effects are going to be at a little bit lower resolution than the 4K format. However, there is also a lot of, you know, there's a lot of good stuff in here that would look good in 4K as well. A lot of cool locations and sets and whatnot that I do think would translate to 4K. But just keep in mind, it's highly likely that the visual effects are not going to translate over to the format as well. The visual effects would likely look a little soft in 4K and whatnot. But such a great film. And if it's one you don't have or have never seen, you definitely should check it out, pick it up, add it to your collection, or do what I did and wait for a 4K that may or may not be coming someday. But like I said, I got tired of waiting. I finally got around to adding the Blu-ray to my collection. So yeah, Contact. All right, just a couple more here to mention real quick. From 1993, I would choose Demolition Man, Sylvester Stallone, Sandra Bullock, Wesley Snipes, which I, of course, have that movie in this 5-movie, is it 5 movies? 5-movie pack here. So yeah, big Stallone fan. And Demolition Man, I think, is one of his better ones of the 90s, certainly in the sci-fi realm. So yeah, Demolition Man. I think I talked about this recently in my Stallone video, so I won't get too much into this, but Demolition Man is definitely on my honorable mention list. Great film. And then finally, another one I've mentioned a couple times on this channel, and that is Waterworld. Got the Arrow 4K chunky box set here. Absolutely love this, and it looks just incredible on 4K. I won't say too much about this because I feel like I have talked about this one a couple other times in recent months. So, but you know, it's a great film, and the if you don't have it on 4K, yeah, I can definitely recommend it. It's a solid 4K release. Some would even consider this a reference quality 4K release. It's that good. So, and of course, I'm a big fan of the Ulysses cut here. The Ulysses cut is the extended, like 3-hour version of this film. Unfortunately, that's only included on a Blu-ray. You don't get that cut in 4K. That's actually my preferred version, but you know, if I'm in the mood to just watch the theatrical version, if I don't want to spend 3 hours on this one, I will definitely be watching the 4K because it looks fantastic. So yeah, Waterworld, great, kind of a notorious during the 90s for going way over budget. They spent so much money on this movie at the time, and I think it was probably the most money that had ever been spent on a film at the time. And, you know, it did okay in the theaters, but it was considered a flop just due to how much money they spent on this. One other thing I will say about this, if you don't have this set, it has an amazing making of documentary in it. That's a feature-length making of documentary. That alone is almost worth the price of admission for this. So, but great 4K title, and you know, an awesome sci-fi films, kind of post-apocalyptic sci-fi film from the 90s, Waterworld. Okay, so that about wraps it up for my favorite science fiction films from the 1990s. I hope you guys like this list. Let me know what you think of my choices in the comments down below, and also let me know what some of your favorite sci-fi films from the era are. I always love hearing from you guys. I always love chatting with you guys in the comments, so make sure you leave some feedback down below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, share if you're feeling so inclined. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll see you soon.